Yeah. That's pretty good, hey, perfect.
Oh, yeah, impressive. That's impressive.
Oh,
Is it? Oh, wait, it has to be on record. It has to be on video.
yes.
Okay, that's what I missed. Okay, no,
So on Lamed Aleph Hamid Beis, on the bottom of the Mishnah,
okay.
this is the second Mishnah. The first Mishnah was about Hektish Betos. If someone was marked something by mistake, so Beis Shammai said it's Hektish, and Beis Hillel said that it's not.
Oh, is it
And really has nothing to do with Maseches Nazir. That wasn't Maseches Nazir yet. The only reason why it came yesterday's Mishnah was because of today's Mishnah. Yesterday's Mishnah was not our subject. It came in as an introduction because our Mishnah is going to bring it down. Somebody made an edit to be a Nazir, and then he was trying to retract it. He asked the Chacham, either, we'll take it simple without getting involved, either like he wanted to make any kind of a Pesach, like a Charata, he wanted to be Matan Neder, he wanted to be Matan Neder on the Nazirus. Also, you might say it's talking about that sometimes a person said a way of becoming a Nazir, he didn't become a Nazir in the first place. The term that he used for becoming a Nazir wasn't a good term. So he had some reason why he thought that he wasn't a Nazir. And he asked the Chacham, and the Chacham said, no, you're wrong, Basaro. And you are a Nazir. It wasn't a good Pesach. Sometimes the Chacham's not able to find the Pesach. They tried. We had some commerce like that in the Durham. Is this a good Pesach? Is this a good Pesach? And they didn't find the Pesach. So Monim Mishash another. So he counts from the time that he had made the Nazirus. Now, is that any Chiddush over there? He tried to be Matan Neder and to get out of it. And the Chacham said he can't, I'm sorry, he can't get out of it. So he's a regular Nazir, and it counts from when he was supposed to have counted. So you could say there's no Chiddush over here. And maybe the Chiddush is a Chiddush that even though he wasn't conscious of the Nazirus, he didn't think he's a Nazir, he thought he's going to get out of it. But still it counts anyway. But the Gemara is going to make a bigger Chiddush out of it. So far, we could say it's a small Chiddush, that even though he wasn't conscious, he wasn't sure he's a Nazir, it still counts. And whenever he started the Nazirus from, it counts, and he just finishes regular, nothing happened. But the Gemara will make a Chiddush out of that. Now the case is, Nishal Chacham V'Tiro, that the Chacham did find the Pesach Pendek. The Chacham was able to retract his Nazirus, and we know that it goes retracted retroactively. So he had separated an animal for the Korban Nazirus, so now we see that it was not a good Korban. If he had an animal that was designated to be a Korban of his Nazirus, so go back into the flock, regular chulin, the thing was a mistake, you thought that it was a Korban, but it wasn't a Korban.
That also seems like not a Kiddush.
Also not a Chiddush, but here Beis Hillel says to Beis Shammai, it's a big Chiddush, it's even against you, because in the previous Mishnah, yesterday's Mishnah, Beis Shammai said Hektish Betos is Hektish. So the Korban should be the Korban should remain. Even the Gemara's Mishnah seems to say, even though the Nazirus successfully got retracted, but they still says to Beis Shammai, you, the Chitascha, you hold the Hektish Betos as a Hektish. So the animal that you designated for the Korban should still be a Korban. How could you say go to Teitzev V'Ter Beida? And that's why the Mishnah came in yesterday. Yesterday's Mishnah was an introduction that Beis Shammai says Hektish Betos is Hektish. Beis Hillel uses this din as a kasha on Beis Hillel. On Beis Shammai, if you hold Hektish Betos is Hektish, this then shouldn't be true. And you seem to agree that if he was shown on the Nazirus successfully, so then the animal is retroactively chulin. Don't you agree? Even though there seems to be Hektish Betos, because now that the Nazirus went off, so the Korban was a mistake, and still, and you should hold that it is Hektish. But you agree over here that it's Ter Be'eda, that it goes out back into the flock and it's chulin. So this is a kasha on Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai holds the Hektish Betos is Hektish, and here the Korban, retroactively we say that it's chulin. So Beis Shammai doesn't answer the question, but they use like a counter-offensive. That I have a kasha on you. You're telling me, he doesn't answer the kasha. Let's see the Gemara what the answer might be. But he doesn't answer the kasha, but he says, I'll show you a case that I'm right. Hektish Betos is Hektish. Beis Shammai, Yatamodim, B'misha Tov Kol Lechi Asiri. Asiri, Shi. Echadasar, Asiri. Shumakudash. This is the din by Maisa Behema. It's a mission in Bechoros, and it talks about somebody who's supposed to take off the tenth of each animal. So everybody knows you take all the animals into the corral, and you have a small opening where one goes out single file, and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the 10th one you have some red paint, and you mark it. It's marked to be the Ma'aseh Behema, and all those become korbanos. That's Ma'aseh Behema. Mitzvah to do Ma'aseh Behema. So what is if they were coming out of the single file and he called number 9, he called it 10. He made a mistake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. He lost count. So he called the 9th one number 10. What if he called the 10th one number 9? And he called the 11th one number 10. Either one of these cases, or all three of them. Or maybe we'll talk. That's not to get the problem over here. But the case is here that if you call number 9 or number 11, 10, it also has a din of kedusha. It becomes a korban. It's not going to become Ma'aseh Behema, but it has a kedusha. There's a din on number 10. Even if he miscounted it, he called number 10 number 9 also. That's because it really is number 10. So there are two dinim over here. One is that the 9th and the 11th. If by mistake he called it 10, because he called it 10, it becomes Kodesh also. And number 10, the real number 10, is Kodesh, even if he didn't call it the right number, because it really is number 10. But that's what Beis Shammai is telling Beis Hillel. Don't you see that Hektish B'tos is Hektish? How come number 9 and number 11 are Hektish? He made a mistake. But since he made a mistake, Hektish B'tos is Hektish. So Beis Shammai didn't answer Beis Hillel's kasha, but they asked the counter kasha. I show you Ma'aseh Behema. You see that it is Hektish B'tos is Hektish. So Beis Hillel is going to answer the kasha. Beis Hillel, I'll prove to you, Lo HaShevet Kidsho. The shevet is the stick. That's when he hits it with not to hit it, but in order to paint it. That he says Hasiri Kodesh. So that's not what made it Kodesh. I'll prove to you that it's not because of his mistake. If it's only because of his mistake, he's going to say right away that number 8 and number 12 also should be. If you say that there's a Hektish B'tos is Hektish, even if he would have made a mistake on number 8 and number 12, he would have said 10 also. It should be, and it's not. If he would have made this mistake and counted the 8th or the 12th one to be number 10, would it be Kodesh? No, over there it's not. So when you see that, it's Exeris Kosev. El Kosev Shekidesh Asiri, who Kidesh Ashi, Ves Achadasor. It's the pasuk that did it. It means it's not a way to say Exeris Kosev. If it would have been a regular mistake, so then it shouldn't be a difference if it's 9 or 8 or 11 or 12. But you see, Dafka 9 and 11 and not 8 and 12. It must be it's Exeris Kosev, and here it's not a kasha to Hektish B'tos. Hektish B'tos is not Hektish. So what do we have here? We have the Mishnah. That's the Chazer over again to see. One case is where he went to the Chacham to get a heter and he did not get a heter. And the Mishnah says so he's a regular nazir and he seems to count from when he was supposed to have counted. It doesn't seem to be a chiddush. Maybe the chiddush is that he was not conscious about it, but we'll see more. And the other case is where he was matir neder, and then everybody holds that the animal that he had designated becomes chulin. And Beisas the kasha from Beis Shammai, according to Hektish B'tos is Hektish. It should be a kodesh, and you see that it's chulin. Why don't you learn out from here? Hektish B'tos is always not hektish. Doesn't answer the kasha, but he did want to bring a raya from Ma'aseh Behema that you see that a mistake is kodesh, and Beis Hillel says no, that's Exeris Kosev, because you see that other mistakes like 8 and 12 wouldn't be kodesh. So you can't learn out from there to this yisod. You see it's Exeris Kosev, dafka over there. Otherwise, Hektish B'tos is not hektish. So that's the Mishnah, and we go on to the Gemara, the top of the Lamed Beis. So the Gemara understands that the Chiddush of the Reisha, where it says that the Chacham did not find the heter, has to be a Chiddush, and the Chiddush is going to be that he was drinking wine. He thought he's not. He thought he has a heter. He thought he's going to be able to go to the Chacham and be mater neder. It won't be a nazir, and he kept and he took the liberty to drink wine. He thought that the Chacham was going to be mater neder. Then he started. Each course he should have done that until he got the heter, but he did drink the wine. So that's the Mishnah seems to say that he counts anyway. Now the halacha is that regular when someone's a nazir and he drank wine, he gets malchus for it if he did it b'mezid, but it doesn't take down the nazirus. If he became tamei, the pasuk says then ayam rishonim yiplu. If somebody became tamei, even by mistake, even pesach pesom, even though it was a onus, also he has to start all over again the nazirus. But if he drank wine or took a haircut, he doesn't. It's like malchus for doing that because he didn't have error, but it doesn't take down the count. But here, when somebody, but now, okay, he didn't take down the count, but now he goes to the Chacham to be matir neder, let's say, or to finish off the Naziris and bring a korban like he's supposed to. So then we don't let him. We tell him, you drank wine. So midrabanan, you have to finish, you have to make up because the days that you drank wine. Midaraisa, it counts even though he didn't drink wine. He drank wine. Let's say he made a Naziris for 30 days, then he drank for all 30 days. He drank wine. He's chayv malchus each time before the. At the end when he comes, some of the Raisa, he did the Nazir. He's finished with the Naziris, even though he did it for Issa, he transgressed the Naziris, but it doesn't take it apart. It doesn't undo the Naziris. But Mirabanan, we're not happy that he was drinking wine. So what do we tell him to do? So there's machlokas over here. The Tanya Mishan al Nazirus, if somebody transgressed his Nazirus, he was drinking wine, taking a haircut. Ain't it's kakamlo? Elam kain mona behen Issa. we don't come obliged to him. It means, so they talk about, we're not going to be mataneder for him if he transgressed the Nazirus until he, and also we're not going to bring his karbanas. We tell him you can't finish the Nazirus until you're going to serve the Nazirus, you're going to act in the way of Nazirus, not to drink wine, not to take a haircut, the same amount of days that you transgressed it. The same amount of days that you acted as if you were not a Nazir and you really were, so you have to do it, you have to fill up those days. So somebody, let's say he drank during his Nazirus, he drank for 5 days, so he has to have another extra 5 days, and he can't count those days. It's not so sir, it doesn't take down everything, but it's not in a ola. And also there's only midrabanan. Midrabanan does count, but Rabbanan doesn't count. He has to count as many days as he drank.
What do you mean it doesn't count?
It doesn't count for his number of days. He said it's going to be another 30 days, and 5 days he drank wine. So he has to do 35 days. He has to do 5 days, and if he had,
they won't take it down, and he has to make up.
right, it doesn't take it down, but it doesn't count. Those days don't count. This is only midrabanan. It's not midrabanan. Midrabanan, he has to make up the days that he didn't do what he was supposed to do. Rabbi Yossi and what? No, that's talking about when he became Tamei. This is when he drank wine.
She says in the Mishnah.
She's not.
So I didn't say that. I just said that he just drank wine or he took a haircut. So that's okay. I don't know. Also, that's, by the way, it's not Rashi. It's the Mefarish. It's not Rashi. The commentator. We don't know who it is. But he wrote a Pirush Rashi, but it's not Rashi. Okay, and I mean to take away, somebody Chashav, but we don't know who it is. So the Tanna Kama says that he has to make up as many days as he drank. And I said a case of 5 days. What if he made in the zeros for 100 days and he drank 40 days?
Sounds like 140 days.
So we'll have to do 40 more days. And after the 40 days that he did, the 40 days that he drank doesn't count. Rabbi Yossi Omer, that the maximum you have to have, he has to have at least 30 days of Nazirus. So Rabbi Yossi also holds that there's some kind of a knas, that you're not going to count the days, but he's not going to make him count extra days to make up days as long as he has 30 days. So we'll learn that there has to maybe a machlokas over here, but you can learn that as long as he has 30 days. As long as he has 30 days that it was a Nazir altogether, even though it's not in a row, altogether he had 30 days, that's enough. So if he made a Nazirus of 100 days and he drank 40 days, since anyway he has 60 days that he was a Nazir, so the Tanna Kama will say you got to do another 40 days. You have to make up whatever you missed. Rabbi Yossi says as long as you have 30 days of Nazirus, you don't have. But they also agree that if you have less than 30 days of Nazirus, Rabbi Yossi is also going to say you have to have at least 30 days of Nazirus. If you drank some days, those days you have to make up.
Does Rabbi Yossi say you can put it in? You do add it.
So
You include it in the 100.
So this seems to be machlokas rishonim, but some say that as long as you had 30 days of not drinking in the whole Nazirus, he had a big Nazirus, he made 100 day Nazirus, and he drank 60 days, but he has 40 days left anyway. So okay, no knas. The knas is only going to be if you didn't have 30 days of not drinking. Some might say a little different, but for our purposes, we could say like that. So that's a brisa. So the brisa says that we don't let a guy who drank wine and took haircut, we don't let him get away with it. According to Rabbana, you always have to make up those days that you transgressed. According to Rabbi Yossi, you have to have at least 30 days of being a Nazir. But if you don't, then you also have to make up those days. And our Mishnah sounds like everything's fine. That Misha Nada ben Nazir, and we're adding on, and he transgressed the Nazirus. Like the Mishnah doesn't say that openly. You can learn the Mishnah that he didn't drink wine. He happened not to have drunk wine, take a haircut. But we'll learn the Mishnah means that even if he transgressed you go on as usual. Go back to the Mishnah just to see the words. He counts from the time that he had started, and as if nothing happens. We don't care the fact that he was drinking wine, taking a haircut. So our Mishnah doesn't fit with either one, not with Rabbi Yossi, not with the Rabbanan. The Gemara tell Hazamor's Kasha, who's our Mishnah, not Rabbi Yossi, not the Rabbanan. Why? Because Rabbanan Kasha Nazir. Now here it says, in our gears it says Kasha Nazir is Muetas, Rabbi Yossi Kasha Nazir is Meruba. So they changed around these two words. The words Muetas and the words Meruba, they change around. Rabbanan Kasha Nazirus Meruba, Rabbi Yossi Kasha Nazirus Muetas. Those two words they change around. And what's the point to say? Muetas means a 30-day Nazirus. A minimum Nazirus is called Nazirus Muetas. Nazirus Meruba means that he made a big Nazirus, more than 30 days. So according to Rabbanan, it's a Kasha even Nazirus Meruba. Even if he was a Nazir for 100 days, but you can't say you count from when you're supposed to have counted, because whatever days you drank wine or took a haircut, they don't count. So in any case, it's not true. You never count from the time, you never finish the Nazirus from the original count, because whatever you transgress, you have to make up. And according to Rav Yossi, it's kasha at least Nazirus mu'etes. Nazirus mu'etes wouldn't be a kasha, because if you have 30 days left, so then the mission is true. You count from when you originally counted. But there would be a case where Rav Yossi also would hold that you can't just count from when you were supposed to have counted, because if you only had 30-day Nazirus and you drank some of those days don't count. So how could the Mishnah say, like a blanket statement, that you just can count from when you were supposed to have counted? That's the most kasha. So the one says, Ibo is Tamer of Yossi, Ibo is Tamer of Rabbanan. Usually this term is called Ibo is Ema. Ibo is Ema means if you want, I could say. Ibo is Tamer means if you want, you could say. So this is not, I think it's the first time we had it in Shas, the different little nuance different, but Nazir is different than the other Masechtas. Here it says, if you want, you could say it's Rav Yossi, if you want, you could say it's Rabbanan. It means I could say the Mishnah, explain it according to any, either Shita. Again, the kasha was, our Mishnah says everything goes on as usual. According to Rabbanan, it never goes on as usual. And according to Rav Yossi, sometimes it doesn't go as usual if you had a minimum Nazirus. The Gemara says, Ibo is Tamer Rav Yossi, Ibo is Tamer Rabbanan. Ibo is Tamer Rav Yossi. If you want, you can say it's Rav Yossi. Kam the Nazirus Meruba, Kam the Nazirus Muetes. You're right. The Mishnah, when it says you go on as usual, is only if you had a big Nazirus, more than 30 days, and even when he drank, he still have 30 days left. So that way, the Mishnah is true that you can continue counting from where you had started from. But in Economy, if it would be on Nazirus Muetes, and you don't have 30 days of not drinking, so then you will have to fill up, make up with the days you missed. But the Mishnah doesn't mean to say a blanket statement, it means only in some cases. Ibo is Tamer Rabbanan, that's really hard. How can you say the Mishnah is Rabbanan? The Mishnah says that you go on as usual, and the Rabbanan say nothing usual, everything goes off. You have to do whatever you missed. Lo Tamer Mishash Nazar, Ela Ema Kim Mishash Nazar. Put in a chaf over there, and then it changes it to the opposite. If the Mishnah says that you count Mishash Nazar the way it says by us, means you count from the original time. Whatever you made it in zeros, it counts as normal. But put in a chaf, Kim Mishash Nazar means you have to start all over again. You have to start and do the same amount of days that you had originally promised. You have to do it again. So the Mishnah is saying the opposite according to that, that you you don't count what you were supposed to have counted. You have to start again. Not that it's so sad, but nothing counts. You have to, all the days that you missed, you have to make up. I think the Chafetz Chaim is on passing like Rav Yossi, that 30 days, I think that's what he says. Oh, I forgot. We pass them like in this case. That was the question. Rav Yossi holds you only have to have 30 days, and Rabbanan say you have to do the whole thing over again. Okay, here the letter seems to say Kimishash Nazar, that you lose everything, you have to start all over. You have to, you lose whatever you drank. Whatever you drank, you have to do over again. Okay, the Mishnah continued about if he was successfully able to retract the Nazirus, so then the Korban, if you had a Korban, so the Korban is Chulin, and even Beishamai is Moda, and the Kasha was why is he Moda? If he holds Hektish, B'tos is Hektish. And in the Mishnah, he didn't say an answer. Rabbi Yirmiyah is going to explain what Rabbi Beishamai's answer was. And he's going to even learn now something which is negated to Beisila. Rabbi Yirmiyah, with the Beishamai, Nishmal Beisila, we could derive from Beishamai what Beisila would hold. It has an application even to Beisila. We don't pass like Beishamai. But Beishamai, we flew out to Beisila, something which we do pass like. Not from Beishamai, Hektish, B'tos, Heavy Hektish. But Chibin the glowing will say the love shop for Nazar, they say with there. But Beisila Nami, there's also going to be an application. Beishamai says Hektish, B'tos is Hektish. But here is Moda that the animal, how we see, was not Hektish. He thought it was he was a Nazir. He separated an animal, designated an animal to be a Korban, and then he was shown on the Nazirus, and the Nazirus is off, and the Korban is really off. The Korban is off, even though Beishamai holds Hektish, B'tos is Hektish. What's the answer? So Rabbi Yirmiyah says that the Mishnah's Kasha is not a Kasha. Beishamai has an answer, even though they didn't answer it to the Beisil, but in the Mishnah there's an answer. The answer is that Glowing Mills said that the whole thing was not in the Nazirus. If there be some mistake, like we had yesterday's mistakes, that I thought that it was black, I thought that it was gold, I thought that it was going to be yayin, whatever, these mistakes. So those mistakes, Beishamai says, is still a neder. But here, the whole, like he pulled the rug from under, the floor fell down, that his whole Korban was based that he was a Nazir. It wasn't a mistake of which Korban he made, let's say. If the Nazirus was a real Nazirus, and now he has to make a Korban, and the question is which animal, that's already, Beishamai says Hektish, B'tos is Hektish. But if the whole Hektish was only because he was a Nazir, and now that whole thing is pulled out from under the floor, that he's not a Nazir even, so that's why Beishamai says that the Korban is not a Nazir. The Korban is not a Korban. That's the answer to Beishamai's question. Beishamai's question was to Beishamai, that you hold Hektish, B'tos is Hektish, even though the Nazirus is retracted retroactively, but the Korban should be a Korban. The answer is no, that since the Nazirus was taken, the whole Hektish was taken away, So then the korban, the whole nazirus was taken away. So the korban is not a korban, even according to Beis Shammai. So now we're going to take that and also apply it to Beis Hillel. That's the words inside. Don't Beis Shammai say hektish because it's usually hektish. But over here, since it was revealed retroactively that it wasn't the nazirus, it's an animal is chulin. So Beis Hillel also will have an application to that also. Beis Hillel holds hektish b'tos is not hektish, but they also agreed that tmura b'tos is tmura. That was what the Gemara said yesterday. That the source of Beis Shammai is that you learn out sof hektish from tchilas hektish from sof hektish. That sof hektish by tmura. Everybody holds that a mistake is still tmura. And Beis Shammai said even hektish also tchilas hektish. Beis Hillel says you don't learn tchilas hektish from sof hektish by tmura. Yes, by hektish not. But Beis Hillel it's going to be relevant. This halacha by tmura. Beis Hillel also will say even though tmura is hektish, tmura b'tos is tmura. But if the whole carpet was pulled out from the bottom, Beis Hillel is also going to be model. But Beis Hillel nam yafagav da'ami tmura b'tos every tmura. Hani mili echad the east leike hektish. Avol echad the mesake v'ike hektish. Mesake nami tmura. If somebody made tmura by mistake, what's tmura mean? That he had an animal of kodesh and he had an animal of chulin, and he said zeh tachazeh, zeh chalifin zeh. So then the tmura also becomes holy. And over there, the case was even if he made a mistake, he did a tmura to the wrong animal, or he thought that a ola and a shlamim, all kinds of mistakes. So Beis Hillel says that the tmura takes place. But if the animal that he's bringing the kedusha from, again, you have a holy animal and you have a chulin animal, and he says that the chulin should be like the hektish, but the hektish wasn't even hektish. If there's a mistake and the hektish animal wasn't even hektish, we retract the kedusha from the original animal, so then Beis Hillel also will be moded that such a kind of a mistake on the tmura is not going to be tmura. The same way Beis Shammai says that if the whole thing is pulled out, so then the hektish is not a hektish, even though usually Beis Shammai holds hektish b'tos is a hektish. But if the whole thing is removed, like the whole nazirus was not a nazirus, then he agrees that the hektish is not going to be a hektish. So too Beis Hillel, even in a case where they hold that the tmura b'tos is a tmura, but that's only if the original hektish, the one that he's taking it from, the one that he's drawing on, was a hektish. But if the original animal was not hektish for whatever reason, so then also the tmura won't become tmura. We'll go further, but just to point out, there's a kasha on the whole sugi over here from Naftes. The whole Mishnah the whole discussion of Beis Shammai sounds like he had a nazirus, and he was able nishal chacham v'yitiruhu, and the nazirus was able to be retracted. And the question is on the korban. Beis Shammai said, everyone says that the korban goes there, takes a v'tir beider, and Beis Shammai said, Beis Hillel says to Beis Shammai, oh, why do you agree over here? It's hektish b'tos. So the answer is because the nazirus was taken out, so then the hektish also, this whole Gemara. So there's a kasha from the test that Mamish exposed the whole Gemara, l'chora, that Beis Shammai says over there that there's no shayla with nazirus. The whole case doesn't make sense according to Beis Shammai, because the nazirus also doesn't go. There's no such case of Beis Shammai holds he can't be shown on the nazirus. This whole case is he was shown on the nazirus. Now the question is on the korban, and he says here, oh, the whole thing was taken off. So the korban also goes on the nether, but not in the nazirus.
Only a problem for people zone.
And over there, it now gets a little bit of a confusing, because how come Beis Shammai says that you can't be shoal on nazirus because you can't be shoal on hektish, and then the Rishonim say how come you can't be shoal on hektish because hektish b'tos is hektish? They mamish connect everything, so it's mamish confusing. So what the answer is, I'm not sure, but that's the problem. That's the problem in the sugya that the Rishonim talk about. What happened that Beis Shammai holds is no shayla with nazirus. So akasha for more eon. But our Mishnah, our Gemara, sugya seems to take it that Beis Shammai agrees you could be shown on the nazirus, and the question is only if the korban is going to go off. And he says yes, even here, even the korban goes off. That's Beis Hillel's question to Beis Shammai, hektish b'tos, you hold this hektish, and he answers that here the whole nazirus went off, so hektish also goes off. New Gemara. Yeah, tamodim shilu kol asiri. So Beis Shammai wanted to prove that hektish b'tos is hektish because by Ma'aseh if you made a mistake and you called 9 or 11, you called it 10, it also becomes hektish. So you see hektish b'tos is hektish. Itmar, we learned a machlokes between Rav Nachman and Rav Chisda Rav Bar Huna concerning Ma'aseh behema. Rav Nachman amar tehuso v'lo kavanasa. Rav Chisda Rav Bar Huna amri tehuso v'kolchkin kavanasa. We talked about that by mistake. That's called tehuso. By mistake, you called number 9 or number 11, you called it 10, so by mistake, they also become coded. What if you did it intentionally? The kavana, you knew it is number 9, and you called it number 10 anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and he knows that this is only number 9, and intentionally he called it number 10. Or number 11, he called number 10. Not by mistake, on purpose. So if Nachman says to Uso v'lo kavanasa, this halacha that 9 and 11 become kodesh is only been did by mistake. But if you did it intentionally, so then there's no such thing. 9 and 11 don't become holy. If even by mistake it becomes kodesh kal v'chomer, if you did it intentionally, it also becomes holy. Machlokes. And now the Gemara wants to prove from our Mishnah who's right. We're talking about Nachman. Nachman is the one who said that if you did it intentionally, it doesn't take effect. 9 and 11 won't become holy if he called it 10 intentionally. You, Rav Nachman, who say that if he did it intentionally, if you called it 10. So you wanted to prove that you see that a hektish by mistake is hektish. Ishtiku Beisil. Beisil didn't answer. Beisil really did answer, but Beisil said it's exeris akasa because you see that 8 and 12 is not, but they didn't attack the actual question. They just proved it from a side point from 8 and 12 that it's not any mistake. It's not over there 9 and 11. But according to you, that this halach is only when it's by mistake and not when it's intentional. Beisil could have disproved deflected the question of Beishamai from the halacha by itself of the 9 and 11, not only from the 8 and the 12. They took away the kasha. They protected themselves by saying 8 and 12 is different. So you see that it's not every hektish patos. They could have proved it from the din of 9 and 11 itself. 9 and 11 is holy, according to you, only when it's by mistake. But if it was intentional, it wouldn't become holy. So that's nothing to do with our subject. Our subject about hektish patos is hektish means whenever it would have done something intentional, it would have taken effect. And now you did it by mistake. That's not Beisil. But here you see that the whole thing's a mapecha. The whole thing is upside down. That if you did it by mistake, it does take effect. If you did it intentional, it doesn't take effect. So it's nothing to do with the subject of hektish patos. Hektish patos is when if you would have done it intentional, it would have been a good hektish, and now you did it by mistake. But if over here it's almost the opposite. It's true that the mistake is hektish, but if you did it intentional, it's not hektish. So it has nothing to do with us. So that must be that you're wrong, Rav Nachman. And over there, Kolshkein Kavanasa, if you called number 9 and 11, you called it 10 intentionally, it becomes hektish. And then the lach is even if you did it by mistake. So you see that hektish patos is hektish. Then Beishamai makes sense. But according to you, Beishamai's right wouldn't make sense. That was Rav's proof against Rav Nachman. And Rav Shimi Barashi is going to defend him. Amar Rav Shimi Barashi, no, really Rav Nachman is right. And the din of calling 9 and 11, 10, makes it, not calling it by mistake number 10, it makes it hektish, is only if you did it by mistake. But if you did it intentionally, it would not take effect. Like Rav Nachman is right. I know time of the Ami Lahon, the Ami Lahon, the reason why Beisil didn't answer Beishamai that you see that it's nothing to do with hektish patos because it's only my mistake and not bekavana, the kal v'chomer, because it would have been a kal v'chomer. Ma ma'aser she'en kodesh bekavana, kodesh patos, hektish kodesh bekavana lo kolshkein. If you see by ma'aser behema that having intention, it doesn't make it kadosh, only by mistake. So hektish, which is kadosh, if you had intention, isn't it surely kal v'chomer that it should be hektish by mistake also? That means that put this into the kal v'chomer also. First, the Gemara meant to say that if you see that bakavana does not work only by mistakes, has nothing to do with our subject. And the Gemara says no, it's possible the other way. That if you see that by mistake it has chalos, even if intentional would not take effect. So kal v'chomer was something when the bakavana does take effect. Kal v'chomer, the mistake also should take effect. So the Gemara's kasha Beishamai's kasha does make sense. Beisil couldn't answer. All Beisil answers is that I'll show you from 8 and 12 that it's exeris akasa over there. It's not because any mistake. If it would have been any mistake, then it would have been 8 and 12 also. Since you see dafka 9 and 11, not 8 and 12. So you see that it's exeris akasa. You can't apply it to other places. So the Gemara ends off with some words of it, and I don't really know what they mean. The Gemara ends off Alohi, the hektish bedaita the Mari Toli. The question is who's talking over here? Is the Gemara talking against Rav Shimi Barashi? Some say that Rav Shimi Barashi is still talking. I'm not sure what these words mean. The words mean that it's not true. Maybe Rav Shimi Barashi is still talking. Maybe the Gemara is responding to him. Hektish is totally in the das of the owner, the one who's being makdashit. So what does those words mean? The Rishonim say different shatim that I didn't get clarity. But Some say that it's just saying over the Mishnah that the hektish should be totally in the das, and Ma'aseh Behema is not totally in the das. It's leaving out the main point. The main point of the answer is the real answer is going to be that Ma'aseh Behema, not a regular mistake. It's a Hazar. But I don't have a good shot in these last words. But the Gemara's discussed just as far as the halacha goes. There was a machlokas over here. Teuso below kavanaso, teuso b'kolchkin kavanaso. And it seems to be passing like Rav Chisda and Rabbi Bar Huna that if he called 9 and 11 intentionally, also it becomes kolchkin, it becomes holy, and the chiddush is even teuso. That was machlokas Rav Nachman and Rav Chisda, and we pass like Rav Chisda that if he intentionally called it 9 and 11, he called 10 also would be hektish. Next mission, it would be hektish. Like not like Rav Nachman.
It makes sense to me that it would be hektish because it seems, excuse me, that he's probably doing it to save money or something.
Why is he saving money by calling?
Well, he sees like they're going through, and then he sees that the 11th one is skinnier, so he said that'll be the most, and this fat one I'll keep. The 10th one.
The halach is going to be that the 10th one is also like the case was that he's doing it by mistake. The case was he's doing it by mistake. The case was he did it by mistake. The Mishnah, the halach, everyone agrees that he did it by mistake, and we want to know what's the din if he did it intentionally. But everybody holds if he did it by mistake that 9 and 11 are kodesh. That's really what the halacha was. The question was, what if he did it intentionally to call 9 and 11 number 10, even though the 10th one is also going to be kodesh. We might have said that the 10th one is kodesh and leave the 10th and 11 alone. The 10th one is also kodesh. That's what's in the Mishnah. Right, the 10th one is kodesh because it's really the 10th, and the 9 and 11 is kodesh because he called it.
Okay.
And if he did it by mistake, everybody holds that the 9 and 11 are kodesh. If he did it intentionally, it's a machlok. So we pass him that also is kodesh.
Okay.
Next Mishnah. Mi shenada benazir. This is easier for the rest of the day. Mi shenada benazir b'halach lavi es behemto. He was a nazir. He did all the zeros. Everything was fine. He's ready to finish. And he had an animal designated to bring for his kabbanis, and he goes to the stall, whatever, to get it, and the animal's not there. And then he says that I can't afford another animal, so I would never have been a nazir. He wants to be matan eder now. He did all the zero successfully, but now that he has to buy another animal, so he says I never meant to be a nazir in this case. So that's a regular case of being matan eder, matan eder. So maybe it's a good way to be matan eder. So it says if he made the Naziros before it was stolen. He made the Naziros, it was stolen after he made the Naziros. So then, I raise the Nazir means that he can't retract. It's not a good retraction. And the reason is because it's called Nola. This is called Nola. We have the concept over there in the Dom that Nola means something which came unexpectedly. Later, it came unexpectedly. So then, it's not a good way of being Mataned. You have to be Mataned with something which is regular, expected, normal. But if it's something which is unexpected, so then you can't use that as a Pesach. You can't say, if I would have known that it was going to be stolen, I wouldn't have made such a Nazirus. So this is the case. The Gemara looks at it like it's something getting stolen is not expected. You don't expect it to get stolen. It's no lie. It was unexpected. So if it was stolen after he became a Nazir, so I raise a Nazir. You can't retract. It's not a good Pesach. But if it was Nazar, but if he made the Nazirus after it was, he thought it was animal. He thought it was an animal over there. He didn't know. He made himself a Nazir. Then he goes back and sees that it was stolen. So then ain't a Nazir because it was already stolen. He didn't know about it, but it was really very stolen. So it's not called Nola. The fact was there already. He just didn't know about it. Nola means that at the time, there was no Pesach. Afterwards, the Pesach was born. And he didn't think about it. So then, it's not. Then it's no that he can't be Mataned with such a kind of a Pesach. But if it was really stolen, he just didn't know about it. So it's not Nola. He just didn't know about it. It was born already. He just didn't know about it. So this Mishnah says that, yeah, you can't use Nola as a Pesach. If something came to be after you made the neder, you can't be posted. You can't use it as a Pesach. This mistake, what we just said, Nachum Hamadi made a mistake. Nachum Hamadi was a Tana. Those who say so really the name is Nachum. It's a Pesach in the Navi where it's called the Sefer is called Nachum, so it's called Nachum. We say Nachum, but really it's for the Pesach. So he didn't know this. He made a mistake, and he made a Pesach with no line. And then wasn't say what the story. But the Mishnah will say what the story was. Nachum. I think that all the Nachum. That's not him. It's not him. It's somebody else. I'm pretty sure it's somebody else. So I'm not saying to say Nachum, but that's in the Navi. That's the Navi is called Nachum. The Ashkenazim say Nachum, but really it's not. Really it's Nachum. It's not the question of a Sephardi Ashkenazi. to say how you say kamatz. It's a pasach over there. Okay, anyway. Kishalon Nazirim and Agola. There were people in the Gola, in the Bavel, out of Eretz Yisrael, that they made themselves Nazirim, and they were intending to come to the Beis HaMikdash to bring their kabbonos. The din is also, we saw that you come to Eretz Yisrael, you have to make the Naziris again, like the Helni Amalka. But the point was that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. They didn't know when they made them, they were Nazirim. Not they didn't know. We're going to talk about if it wasn't even destroyed. When they made themselves Nazirim, it was not yet destroyed. And they came to Eretz Yisrael, and they came to the Beis HaMikdash. They saw that it was destroyed, and they can't bring the korban, and no way to get out of their Naziris. So they're stuck. They're not able to get out of their Naziris till you bring the korban. And the Beis HaMikdash is chorei.
So they were
Nazir.
There was a Canaan. They were Zakanim, I'm saying.
Why were they Zakanim?
Because they made the Nazirs while the Beis HaMikdash was still standing. Now they're coming back from Babel 7 years later.
No.
No. Yishalom Nazir min HaGoyla. What's the Goyla?
Matzah Beis HaMikdash chorei from out of Eretz Yisrael and Gola. Matzah Beis HaMikdash chorei.
Yishalom Nazir, they're coming out of Babel.
Okay, they went to Babel also before the korban. First, this is
They didn't know the
This
Beis
is-
HaMikdash was destroyed. When they made
this
the
is
Naziros,
by
they-
Sheni. Nachum Hamad is by Sheni. Nachum is not by Bayis Rishon. He's from the Tanam. He's by Sheni. You're talking about the 70 years of the Bayis Rishon, between Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni. Here we're talking about the end of the Bayis Sheni.
Because you're saying.
People-
We're
We're not talking about the people in the Tanakh.
So some people were.
They made themselves Nazirim.
So it's by Shani that. Yes.
They made themselves Nazirim, and they were expecting to come to the Beis HaMikdash and bring the korbanos. The times of Rabbi Yochanan Mazakai, the times of the Bayis Sheni, and they came.
Nobody ran.
They lived in Babel. They lived in Babel. Not everybody came back. There was a community in Babel. The whole Bayis Sheni, there was a community in Babel. The Babel continued even after. So they came to the Beis HaMikdash expecting to be able to bring their korbanos. And they saw that it was chorei, and then they said that we never would have become the Nazirim if we would have known that we're not able to get out of it. If you would have known that the Beis HaMikdash is going to be chorei, and you're not going to be able to get out of your Nazirus, would you have become a Nazir? Nowadays, when someone becomes a Nazir, he knows no Beis HaMikdash now, and he's doing it with the intention to be a Nazir until the Beis HaMikdash is going to be built. But in those days, when he did it, they became a Nazir. They thought that the Beis HaMikdash is standing, they'll be able to bring their korbanos, and now they see that it can't. Would you have made yourself a Nazir if you knew that you're not going to be able to get out of it? We wouldn't have become a Nazir if we wouldn't have been able to get out of it. And he said that that you wouldn't have become a Nazir if you would have known that the Beis HaMikdash is going to be chorei. But this was an olad. The Gemara says this is an olad. They said you made a mistake. It only helps if you made the Naziris after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, and you didn't know about it. So then it's not called nolad. You just had a lack of information. But if you made the Naziris before the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, you made the neder in Tammuz. Before the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed in Tisha B'Av. They made the neder in Tammuz, and then they found out that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed in Tisha B'Av. So then you can't retract it because it's nolad. The fact that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed was something that happened after the neder. So it's called nolad. And the Mishnah first talked about when the animal was stolen, and then the Mishnah applied it to the case of the Chorban Beis HaMikdash also. If you made the neder when the Beis HaMikdash was standing, and then it got destroyed, so you can't say if I would have known, because it wasn't expected. It didn't happen yet. But if it would happen before, but you just didn't know about it, so then you could use that as a person. Amar Rabba, Shatfu Rabbanan Rabbi Eliezer Buk maybe Tasayu, Detnan Posum Benola, Div Rabbi Eliezer V'Chacham Mosri. The Gemara reminds us of a Mishnah in the Dorim that there's a machlokis if you're allowed to use nolad as a pesach by regular neder. The Chacham say not, and that's what we know in Posum Benola. But Rabbi Eliezer holds yes. And in Maseches Nedarim he argued, and in Maseches Nazir he doesn't argue anymore. It means, in other words, they should have argued on our Mishnah. They should have said on our Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer says you could. The whole thing about nolad, our Mishnah is all about nolad. And Rabbi Eliezer doesn't argue, we should have argued. Since he doesn't argue, that means Shatfu Rabbanan, the Rabbanan flooded him, and they convinced him, or they took him onto their side, and he gave in. Even though he argued in Maseches Nedarim, Maseches Nazir was after Maseches, and here he doesn't argue anymore. The fact that he doesn't argue, then seems to sound like he gave in. Even though he held once upon a time Poskim ben Nolad, but he agreed to Rabbanan in Poskim. There's no difference between Nedarim and Nazirus, that's what the Gemara is saying. And the same way he holds by Nedarim yes, poskim b'nolad, he should have said by Nazirus also. Since he doesn't, it means he gave in and he agreed to the Rabbanan that you cannot use nolad as a Pesach.
Even by Tanner Achnai, Rabbi Lezer didn't give him.
Right.
That was maybe an Indian rice, there's Rabbanan.
This is also the Raisa to be posed that. Why is it Rabbanan over here?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking some of those. You're right.
What?
So here, I guess.
Because the point is obviously because he agreed. He agreed. It means he gave in. It means that whatever proofs they brought, they agreed. If he wouldn't have agreed, he wouldn't have given in. Not because just because of it wasn't because of public pressure. It's because he gave in.
You can say he didn't agree with the Psak, he disagreed with the Maisa. This is what this is. He's not disagree with historical facts that the Chachamim answered them. But he might have said that's the wrong Psak.
No, but it should have been in the Mishnah. He should have said his opinion, not the story about Nachum Hamadi, but halacha that if somebody made a neder and then his animal got stolen, could he use that as a Pesach? Mishnah says no. So Beleza should have been quoted as saying yes if he would have disagreed.
Okay.
The Gemara starts. Anu Gemara. Amar Rava. Afagav Lamar Rabbanan ain't posting b'nola. Be passing like the Rabbanan ain't posting b'nola. You can't use nola as a Pesach. Aval posting b'tanai nolad. What does that mean? Tanai nolad. I don't know. I wouldn't know what the words mean. The condition of nolad. Hechidami. What's the case that called tanai nolad? Amri lahon ilu asa inish v'amalachon dechor beis hamikdash. We have an adrison. If we tell them they made the neder before the Beis Mikdash was destroyed. And then you can't use that you can't use the destruction of the Beis Mikdash as a Pesach because it didn't happen yet at the time and it wasn't expected. But if we tell them, if a person would have come to you at the time you made the neder and told you that the Beis Mikdash is going to be destroyed, would you have made a neder? And they would say no. Means if you would have considered the possibility. I didn't consider the possibility. I didn't think about it. But if someone would have been there and have told me, would you make the neder? The Beis Mikdash is going to be destroyed. You're making a neder. You realize the Beis Mikdash is going to be destroyed. You're not going to be able to bring your carbon. You would have been. Then he said, "No, I wouldn't have." If someone would have been there and he would have told me that possibility, I would have considered it down and I'd make the neder. That's good enough. The point I was always talking about if you would have made the neder or not. So even though Lamaisa there was nobody that came to him at the time, but if somebody would have come, that's also enough of a. That's not called nolad. Nolad means that the whole thing was born afterwards. Here we're saying that at the time I wouldn't have made the neder if someone would have been there. We had similar things in Pesach Sadorim. I don't remember the lumdus over there, but there was a lumdus. This is better that if somebody would have been there, even though nobody was there. But that's not called nolad. That's called more like a charata if that would have happened. But I don't have clarity. But we did have a sugi in the dorm also, which maybe will be over there more way to figure out what the lumdus is. New Gemara. The end of the Gemara just talks about. Was it considered unexpected that the Beis Mikdash was going to be destroyed? Didn't they know about it? Amar Joseph, there's a pasuk that says that the people were saying that Heichal Hashem is not going to be destroyed, and they're saying they were trusting in the Beis Mikdash. The people, like it says in the Navi a lot of times, they trusted, like it says, nobody believed that Beis Mikdash is going to be destroyed. And that's what they were saying. Heichal Hashem. They were saying that Beis Mikdash, we trust in the Beis Mikdash, that's going to save us. But the Gemara says a drash that it says 3 times. Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Hema. Zem Mikdash Rishon, Mikdash Sheni. That it says that the way the pasuk is talking about in the Tanakh, so it's not talking about the Beis Mikdash Sheni. But the Gemara says a drash. The fact that it says Heichal Hashem so many times, it's also referring that the Beis Mikdash Sheni is also going to be destroyed. So didn't they know? Didn't they know the Beis Mikdash is going to be destroyed from the drash? Didn't they know that there was a nevuah already from a long time ago from the first Beis Mikdash that not only is the first going to be destroyed, the second is also going to be destroyed. So how come we say that it's nolad means that it's unexpected, even though they made the neder before it happened, but they knew it's going to happen? The answer is even though they knew it was going to be destroyed, but they didn't know when. So they knew it's going to be destroyed, but they didn't know when, and they thought that when they made the neder, they'll be able to bring the kabbanis naziros before it's destroyed. So it is called nolad because they didn't know, it was unexpected when it's going to be destroyed. They didn't know when it's going to be destroyed, even though that also. Well, it says in the pasuk, this pasuk in Daniel, Shivuim Shivim Nechtach Alamcha. What is this? Number 2, just to get the right reading of it. Shivuim shivim, nechtach alamcha b'alir kadshecha l'chalei ha'pesha l'asei mechatasu l'chaper avon v'lavi tzedek olamim v'lachtom chazon v'navi v'lemshoach kodesh kodeshim. Shivuim shivim is going to mean 70 times 7. 70 times 7 is 490. 490 is how many years there were from the first korban to the second korban, because you had 70 years plus 420. The first base they stood for 410, second one was for 420, and there were 7 years in between. So it says that the Gzeira of till the korban is 490. Shivuim shivim. I'm not sure if that's the part, if you can read in the Neil, there's a lot of secrets over there about the numbers, and not all of them are explained. But here the Mishnah, here the Gemara seems to explain that they knew that it's going to be in 490 years. So they did know when the Beis Mikdash is going to be destroyed. How could you say that they didn't know when? They did know when. They knew that it's going to stand for 420 years. The answer is, did they know which day? They knew the 490th year. They knew, but they didn't know which day. And they didn't know it's going to be Tisha B'Av. And they made the neder hoping that they're going to be able to bring the Korbanos before the Beis Mikdash is destroyed, and that was a mistake. That's called Nola. So, Kissa, what did it say in our sugya?
They made a mistake in the face.
They made themselves Nazirim, and they didn't consider the fact that the Beis Mikdash might be destroyed, and they're not able to be the Korbanos Naziros. So that's called Nola. Afterwards, they came and they saw that it's destroyed. They said, we want to, Nachamadi wanted to be able to mata neder, because if he would have known, he wouldn't have made a neder. And the Chum said that that's Nola, because they didn't think of that possibility. And even though it's pretty difficult, they knew that's going to be destroyed that year. According to the Gemara, they knew it's going to be destroyed that year. They didn't know when, and they figured that it's not going to be destroyed till they get there. It was already whatever. I don't know when they made the nether, but they thought it's not going to be so soon in Tisha B'Av. They thought it would have been later on in the year, and they made themselves Nazirim, and they're not able to get out of it because it's called Nolad. So Akitza also you said that Ein Poskim B'Nolad, and they gave two examples. One is about a Geneva, one is about the Churban Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara says if you would have somebody over there that would have asked you, reminded you of the possibility, that's also a way to get out of it. Even Ein Poskim B'Nolad. Rabbi Lezer said the Gemara says was molded to the Rabbanan Ein Poskim B'Nolad, and the Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara says that even though they knew it's going to be destroyed, even which year it's going to be destroyed, it's still called Nolad because they didn't know which day. Yashikor, tomorrow is the short daf. Just to see the short daf. Here's the Amud Aleph. And Amud Beis is no Gemara at all.
Oh.
That's the shortest daf in Shas, because no daf at all. But we'll try to go to the end of the parak tomorrow, which also is pretty short.
All the Rashis and places.
So they also, most of it is printed from earlier dafin, the way they printed it. And it's starting 7:30 tomorrow. 7:30. Yes, go everybody. Thank you.
Have good Shabbos.
7:30. Tell to everybody. Thank you.
Zoom in.